Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. Today, our interview with Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee. She'll talk about her book, The Mind of a Conservative Woman, Seeking the Best for Family and Country. It's a blueprint for how a conservative woman lives in the United States Republic at this time, at this moment, in these days. An insightful book, really, on many levels. We're happy to have Senator Blackburn with us. We're honored to have her with us. We'll talk about the book. We'll also talk a little bit about the Amy Coney Barrett nomination to the Supreme Court. Right here on The Right Side with Doug Billings. Here we go. Our interview with Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee. Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Right Side with Doug Billings. It's a real big day for us here on The Right Side. We have Senator Marsha Blackburn with us from Tennessee, and we are excited to talk to her about her new book, The Mind of a Conservative Woman Seeking the Best for Family and Country. Senator Blackburn, thank you so much for agreeing to come on our program.
I am delighted to join you and to be a part of your show and to have the opportunity to talk a lot about conservative women and what conservative women face today, whether they're in the private or the public sector.
Good. I am too. And I think it's a timely book given what's going on with the Supreme Court. We'll get to that eventually. And I also have to tell you that Tennessee is one of my favorite states. I love Nashville. I love Memphis. I'm a huge Elvis fan. So Memphis and Graceland are like Mecca for me. So.
Well, that is wonderful. Come anytime. We're a state. I say we have good food, good people, good music. So come on down.
Absolutely, ma'am. We will indeed. We love it. So, Senator, why this book and why this subject matter at this time?
You know, Doug, this is a book that came about because so often I would be speaking to women's groups around the country and somebody would say, you know, Marsha, there is a double standard. And the mainstream media, the left, they glorify and amplify liberal women. But then what do? They ridicule and mock conservative women. Yeah. And we saw it happen time and time and time again. Or I would be speaking to a business group and somebody during the Q&A would throw their hand up and say, look, I'm not a liberal or a conservative. I'm an independent. I look at every issue and every candidate. Then I make my mind up.
Right.
So after a few years of hearing that, I started to say, tell me about your filter. What's important to you? And people would say, well, I want people that abide by the Constitution and the rule of law. I want equality. I want justice. I want government off my back, out of my pocketbook. I want to make my own health care decisions. I want to decide how to educate my child. I want opportunity for everybody. Yep. And I thought, you know what? They're giving me a conservative construct. And they're conservative. They just don't know it. So I decided to write this book about how conservative women, what they face, how they respond, what are the values that are important to them.
Excellent. And I think that hits on it. The core values of almost every human being revolve around, I think, and again, as a conservative man to a conservative woman, I think that our morality, our principles, and our political views are bound up in what the founders viewed as, God's divine providence, and how he guides us continually through not only our lives, but hopefully within the constructs of our Constitution. And I think that founding and the mention of God is something that I think as conservatives we need to be proud of. And in your book, you mentioned that the liberals will take aim specifically at conservative women. You mentioned something, the Stepford Wives of liberalism. Yes. And for those of us that are old enough to remember the movie Stepford Wives, that's a frightening image, A. But then B, this supposedly welcoming party, the party of inclusion, the liberal side. They want to call themselves that, but I use the term evidence of the obvious should be sufficient. to me, evidence of the obvious is that liberals are completely the opposite of that, especially when it comes to conservative women. And you made note that they can be cruel. They can call conservative women some pretty gnarly names, the B word and so forth, and they can't comprehend why a woman would hold conservative values. And when did you first realize in your life that, wow, they really do have some hate and animosity simply because I'm a conservative?
It's something I had been aware of for decades, actually. When, the women's movement coming in through the 70s, and you had to do it their way or no way, but now they've become very strident on it. In times past, you could have that agreeable disagreement. Yeah. You could agree that you were going to work together on something, but from different viewpoints, because you shared, you wanted the same outcome. You had different ways of getting there. But what has happened recently is that Democrats that are on the left will say, we don't want diversity of viewpoint. Now, what they're trying to do is cancel you out. In the past 5 or 6 years, this has become very apparent. This is how they operate. You're either totally with them on every issue, you're buying into the leftist agenda, and if you are pro-life, pro-family, pro-religion, pro-business, they're going to say, we don't want to hear from you. We don't want to hear from you at all. Right. So this is something that we have seen progress. And now, of course, after Donald Trump was elected president, what did they do? Those on the left self-identified and named themselves the resistance. And I will tell you, the American people don't want the resistance. What they want are reformers that are going to be working toward a more perfect union. And what the left has done is to say to an entire group of people in this country, women who are center or center right, we don't want to hear from you.
Right.
You don't count.
Absolutely.
If you're not going to buy into our agenda, we don't want to hear from you.
Absolutely. You know what, Senator, we saw that just, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, when Lindsey Graham, at the conclusion of the hearings for that day, gave Dianne Feinstein a little hug, right? And the left blew up about that.
Yes.
How did you see and hear? Isn't that a shame, really?
Yes, it is a shame. But as I said in my statement to Judge Barrett, she was not a part of the clique or the club in Washington, D.C. She was a Southern girl who went to Rhodes College, who went to Notre Dame for law school. People opened doors for her. She went to D.C. to clerk, but she chose to go back to her roots, to have a family, to be a part of a community, to be active in a church, to be a college professor. And because of that, they condemn her. Yeah. We even have people that wanted to institute a religious test, because here's a woman who takes her children to church every Sunday, all 7 of them. Yeah. And they felt like that was a disqualifier for serving on the federal bench.
Right. Yeah, I can, as a conservative Catholic man and as a father of a son who has Down syndrome, I identify in many ways with Amy Coney Barrett, and when we admire. Right. She we'll get to her in a minute. I want to continue on with your book. You mentioned some things that I obviously agree with, that the liberals can't fathom the fact that someone like you wouldn't follow in their footsteps. The left in so many ways believes they need to take care of us from birth to the grave. And I think that, Senator, in my view, first of all, I want to get your opinion on, how do you think people get there? How do people get to the point where they think government needs to take care of us from cradle to grave? And because in my opinion, Senator, I think that's a form of slavery. I mean, I think they're trying to keep them locked down to a certain mindset and enslave them to entitlements or whatever. In your book, you talked a lot about them and how they oppress other folks. How do they get there?
Well, the left, and this is part of where they go repeatedly. What do they say in the life of Julia? We'll take care of you. Education, job, the whole 9 yards, retirement. Um, so that is not what most people want. What people want is to be able to make their own decisions.
Absolutely.
And they don't want the government making those decisions for them. And this is especially true with women. And I hear it repeatedly. And I have to tell you, Doug, writing this book and having it come out now, during this time when we have Judge Barrett up, when we have the election coming up, it has generated a lot of that conversation about what people want. The number one issue during this election season is safe and secure communities.
Mhm.
People want to be safe in their communities, and they want to be safe in their homes. And to have people talk about taking that away. They also want economic security, jobs that are going to lead to prosperity. And they want the ability to negotiate their own contract with their employer. They don't want the federal government saying, this is what your job is going to be and this is how much you're going to make. They want to be paid every penny that they are worth, and they're right about that. They should. So this is one of those big differences between liberal women and conservative women. Conservative women say, give me the reins and I will tend to this. And liberal women are saying, give government the control and they will give you the cover and make people do what they ought to do. Big differences there.
Absolutely agree, and very good. As we look back on this year, the craziness of 2020,
yes,
I can't imagine not just conservative women, but women of any ilk who, when they look at the television and they see the mob, they see an absence of law and order, they see all of the things that are missing from what you just said. They want law and order, conservative women do. I think women in general really want those things. I can't imagine people who are capable of any degree of critical thinking, no matter what they might think about President Trump. They might not like his personality. They might think that he tweets too much, whatever. But I can't imagine folks who, when they really look at this, go, you know what? President Trump's going to be there for 4 more years, perhaps at most. I don't want this mob to continue on forever. For me, the only thing I could never imagine myself voting for Trump, but I'm not going to vote for the mob. Don't you think that factors into what we're experiencing today?
Oh,
and
yes. Let me tell you, I do. I had a lady yesterday who was on my flight coming from DC, and she had heard about my book, had not read it, but had watched some of the Comey hearings, Amy Coney Barrett hearings. And she said, I have to tell you, safety and security is my issue. And she said, I've listened to you and I've decided I don't particularly like how the president acts. And I've heard you talk a little bit about that, but I like his policies. My kids have better jobs. They're making more money. Our retirement account is doing better. So I'm going to put up with these actions I don't like, because she said, I heard you say one day, this isn't a personality contest. I said, you're exactly right. It is not. This is about freedom. And I say there are 5 big things that I get up and fight for every single day: faith, family, freedom, hope, and opportunity. But, it was encouraging to me, Doug, that this lady had heard enough that she said, I'm going to get your book. I'm going to read your book. I am going to vote based on policies, and I'm going to think about the future.
I think that's just awesome. And the book is such a blueprint for how conservative women can, live their life. You give specific advice on things. For example, in chapter 9, you talk about public tactics for the conservative women, and you list a series of things that I find wonderful, and I find them to be very, very appropriately said. And I think it's time people say these things out loud. I mean, take a stand where it counts. Team together, everyone achieves more. Respect male mentors. Pick your battles wisely. Be your best. Give back more than you take. And be a happy warrior for noble womanhood. I want to get your opinion on that. Be a happy warrior. Tell me a little bit about that. What does that mean in your view, and how did you come about that term?
I really came about that when I was thinking through my 5-word mission statement. And
Mhm.
in the book, I write a little bit about how I arrived at that. And I've been so pleased that so many women feel like it applies to them also.
Yep.
And, I would look at women who were from the left, and they were always angry.
I
They
know.
come, they come to the discussion angry. And I thought, why are you doing this? I don't see many people move to action by anger and resentment. And
Sen-
it really has come forward so much since President Trump won
yeah.
election.
Yeah.
And they felt like it was a badge of honor to be the resistance, to
Yeah.
be angry.
Yeah.
And I think that you achieve so much more by being able to explain who you are and what you're about. And we see this repeatedly. Our mothers used to tell us you catch more flies with sugar than salt.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
you need to remember that when you go into the public space and meet people where they are and explain to them. And I have an entire chapter in the book. Newt Gingrich wrote the foreword
Yes.
for the
Yep.
book,
Hmm.
and he's a great historian, and I have a wonderful chapter in there about the history of conservatism, because that is our heritage.
Hmm.
And it's a wonderful heritage. And I go back to the 12 tribes of Israel, from which we get our principle for federalism,
Hmm.
and the Judeo-Christian ethic from Jerusalem, our appreciation for philosophy that comes from the Greeks, the rule of law comes from the Romans,
Yeah.
our form of government comes from London, and then you have our founding documents in Philadelphia. This really lays out how we came to modern day conservatism, and we look at
Mhm.
some of the writings of some of our great conservatives throughout history.
I think that's incredible. That's a great story. And your point about the vulgarity and the vileness with which, and I'm just going to say it, I think conservative people are generally more happy, and they're generally better looking people. And I'm not talking about physical appearance. I think they have this aura about them that makes them more appealing, conservative people. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
The left is just somehow unhappy, and they seem to wallow in their unhappiness.
Yeah.
Senator, what about, let's talk about, I know you sat in the hearings this week, and our time is almost done, but I do want to touch on Judge Amy Coney Barrett, and just to give you a chance to, we all think she's a rock star. I mean, I think both sides, that polls are clear that now more people than ever are actually in favor of her sitting on the Supreme Court.
That's correct.
Give me your gut check about where you think this thing is going to go. Are there going to be any surprises from the left? And do you think this is all going to go through as planned?
Well, I tell you what, there are a lot of prayer warriors out here praying that those angel wings are going to spread wide and overlap and protect her and her family. We know this is the point at which there was the allegations against Justice Kavanaugh that came forward. So you never know what the left is going to do and how they're going to try to position themselves. What we do know is that we are ready to move forward with the committee vote next Thursday. We will then follow that with being able to take her to the floor, maybe even the next day to vote cloture, and the following day to vote her confirmation.
Excellent. Good news to hear.
Yes.
One of the last questions for you, Senator, in terms of your book and your life as a Christian conservative woman and an elected official at a high level, what does it mean to you to be able to change lives and opinions for the better? I'm curious.
Oh, to me, it is just such a blessing to be able to speak into someone's heart and mind, and maybe show women who are out there struggling. I can't tell you the number of women who have said, you know what, I really felt like I didn't have a landing place. I really felt like I didn't have, that I couldn't say anything at work because I can't afford to lose my job.
Right.
And
Right.
my human resource manager is somebody who is a woman of the left, and she is very political. And or my supervisor is someone who is incredibly political, and so they feel trapped.
Okay.
And I think that is so miserable, to be trapped, and for our society to be tilting toward this authoritarian cancel culture. You have to be in lockstep, in complete agreement. So for me, being able to write a book that says you have a landing spot,
Yes.
and there are lots of people that agree with you out there, and they're trying to protect their children just like you're trying to protect your children, and they're concerned about a tilt toward socialism and a cancel culture and what that means for society writ large. And if you want to have those discussions, here are guidelines on how to actually have those discussions, and words that you can use to try to get people to think. Anytime you have a point, what do you have? You're going to have a counterpoint.
Right.
Anytime you have an action, you're going to have a reaction. So that is the give and take that we have always loved in this country. We have always cherished that we have robust, respectful, bipartisan debate.
Absolutely.
And through that, we arrive at consensus.
Excellent.
And that is what conservative women would like to see us return to.
Agreed. Well said. I think that, also, Senator, I would just say this to you. You're obviously your reputation precedes yourself. You're a senator that is well known throughout the country. Your reputation and your presence permeates the country. And so I think that this book at this time and in this day of our republic is going to make a very significant impact in the lives of conservative women and conservative men, for that matter.
Yes.
And I'll just say this about making differences for the better. Once upon a time, I was in seminary studying to be a Catholic priest many years ago. And it was as I contemplated the meaning of life, there's books and books written about it. But for me, the ability to enter into the lives of other people and make differences for the better sums up the meaning of life for me. And I want to just tell you, Senator, that I really do see you fulfilling that meaning of life. I do think that you enter into the lives of other people and make differences for the better. And I appreciate it. So thank you for that, and sincerely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It is really an honor and a privilege. And your viewers are going to be able to find this book at all major booksellers.
Yep.
I had somebody the other day say, "Oh, I went to Sam's and they had a big stack of them there." I said, "Good. We hope they sell." And they're also going to find the book online. And I do hope that they will read it and pass it to a neighbor who maybe struggles about what and how to speak up and say. And it's great for men. I've had some men say that they read it, they were curious, and so they read through the book, and it helped them to be more attentive to women that worked with them that might be feeling pressure from the left and being a little bit fearful to speak up and express their opinion.
Absolutely. Kind of like a women from Venus, men from Mars scenario there, where the men can get an
Yes.
insight into the life of a conservative woman. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we have been so honored and happy to have Senator Marsha Blackburn on the program. She's from Tennessee. Her new book, The Mind of a Conservative Woman, Seeking the Best for Family and Country, is available wherever you can buy books or download books. Senator Blackburn, sincerely, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us here on the right side. I really do appreciate your time.
Delighted to join you. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Doug Billings here on the right side. Every once in a while we have a chance to meet some really, really nice politicians. Rob Olson is one of those guys. Rob Olson is the state senator of Kansas from the 23rd District, and I encourage you to look him up and do your research and vote for Rob Olson on November 3rd. We are in need of his leadership in the Kansas State Senate. He will control a socialist governor, and he will implement and follow the principles and foundations set by our framers and our founding fathers. He's a staunch believer in the Constitution of the United States, and I think that he is exactly what we need in Topeka. to help us in the state of Kansas, Johnson County, in the 23rd District. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you head to the polls, Rob Olson, Kansas State Senator, District 23. Cheers.